I did want to put a little disclaimer. I am currently sick, so I might sound a little off here in this. But this is a review that I did not think I would be making. A game from the top-down perspective would have normally been an instant no for me about 5 years ago. But the hype surrounding Diablo 4 is something that could not be ignored. With Blizzard and Xbox marketing the ever-living shit out of this game, it was everywhere you looked. Full live-action trailers directed by Academy Award winner Chloe Zhao, as well as Megan Fox talking about her weird blood obsession. Blizzard even announced that the game has made over $666 million in its first 5 days. In the first week of release, over 276 million hours have been played. And now, normally, looters that I have played in the past are from the first or third person perspective, with these games ranging anywhere from Destiny 1 and 2, The Division 1 and 2, and as well as Marvel's Avengers. But never have I played a Diablo game until now.
They have our scent. Run!
Diablo is a storied franchise that dates all the way back to January of 1997. And to put that into perspective, I wasn't even born yet. The first PlayStation console wouldn't be released for almost another year. And I work with a guy that has the original hard copy manual of Diablo for Windows. And the quality of these games stands the test of time as they are still kicking around to this day. And while I have no predisposition to Diablo, I had sort of an idea of what I was getting myself into. A top-down, open world sort of looter with leveling mechanics.
That feels like an oversimplification.
While that does describe the game, it doesn't quite do it justice, and I'll be breaking down this review into two separate sections. One where I talk about my experience from the start of the game until I finish the main campaign, as well as having another section that's dedicated sort of my thoughts into the endgame system and the Paragon system as well. And the campaign of Diablo has you starting off with selecting one of 5 characters, either a barbarian, rogue, a druid, a necromancer, and what I ended up going with, the sorcerer class. And this game does open on one of the best looking CGI cutscenes that I've ever seen in recent years, and it really does set the stage for the main villain, Lilith. And while I know next to nothing about Diablo, the lore surrounding the game did kind of catch me off guard by how deep it was. And I know that the first couple hours really do a good job at getting you caught up to speed in the world of Sanctuary, which is where the main game takes place. And the main story itself is split into 5 acts, and these acts are pretty chunky in size and length, and they'll have you covering about 50% of the open world. And like I mentioned beforehand, this is my first Diablo experience, and I did find the campaign to be pretty entertaining, with some really beautiful crafted set pieces across the map, whether that's in the western section, the northern section, the eastern section, which is more like snow. That's where you start out with, and then I believe it's more towards the west is sort of the desert area, which I thought was really cool as well. And as you move through the early levels of the game, I did feel considerably weak with only being able to cast one or two abilities before a lengthy cooldown. But as I leveled up and unlocked perk specializations, that's when I was able to really craft out my ice build, which is what I've been using since basically about the mid-20s. And another thing the game actually does very well is allow you to experiment with builds and different abilities, and the ability to refund and respec those abilities only at the cost of some gold, which you are going to be drowning with in this game. That is a fact. And a lot of the gold will drop from either enemies that are defeated on the open world or selling absolute insane amounts of loot that this game gives you. Seriously, half the time your inventory will be full and you'll be finding that you wish you had more space. One thing I really do like that Diablo does is that it allows you to take a perk from a certain weapon. Say you get a really good drop in the early level, but by the time you reach that end game, it would normally not be worth anything. But the game allows you to take that special aspect, remove it for a cost of gold, and then allows you to imprint it on another item. But unfortunately, you aren't going to be able to do that just repeatedly and over. It only allows you to imprint it that one time, as far as I know. And that's done at one of the plenty of shops that you'll find across the world of Sanctuary that allows you to sort of inch and upgrade your character towards that final end game build that you might be looking for. And I will say, towards the end of the game, you really do get that sort of progression ramp up where the enemy density starts to kick up and the enemy difficulty as well kind of ramps up, which is a great sense that it's trying to build you up for the end game content, and I really like that. And I do want to say that this, I know I didn't talk too much about the campaign. It's because I don't really have any overall negative thoughts. I thought it was a good story. I will admit that I understood a lot in the beginning and I got kind of lost in the middle. And then towards the end, I started to kind of gravitate back towards that with Lilith and Inneros. And speaking of those two, they have one of the best cutscenes that I've ever seen in a video game. And I'm not, no bullshit, it is 8 minutes, and it is 8 minutes of pure cinema. Martin Scorsese himself would be proud. Now, this block of the review is going to be titled The Endgame. Not Marvel's Avengers Endgame, just Endgame. And this is going to be my experience with the game post-campaign. Once you beat the game, you're taken through a little epilogue, which sort of sets you on a path to do the endgame activities that are sprinkled on throughout the main area. One of the main ones is going to be the Tree of Whispers, which you'll occasionally visit throughout the story as it progresses, but in here you'll deposit Grim Favors, which you're awarded for completing certain objectives like dungeons, attics, and events. And those spawn within a certain contained area, and that rotates, I believe, every hour. And that is one of the sort of central pillars of the end game, that it's a loop that you continuously can just run. And then also, once you reach World Tier 3, you unlock something called Hell Tides, which are sort of similar to the Tree of Whispers in the sense that they rotate and move around. But the main goal here is to get as many of these cinders that drop from defeating enemies within these areas, and then you use those to open chests within the area. And I believe that they range from anywhere from 150 and then so on to open a single chest. Also, once you hit level 50, you unlock something called the Paragon board, which allows you to put points into nodes that will be sort of your passive buffs, with willpower, which will give you more health, or intelligence, which allows your skills to do more damage. And if you've played any MMO looter RPG, you'll sort of know what this is. Like the Division has sort of the Shade Watch. Avengers had something sort of like that. Champion levels, I believe, is what they were called. It's just sort of this end game thing that progressively and incrementally can make your character stronger. It might not seem like a lot at the beginning, but it really does add up towards the end. And I think that's a great way that allows you to min-max your build for some of that higher end game content. And sadly, I'm not entirely how much sure the end game content I will be diving into. I had intended to make the end game portion a lot longer in this video, but I guess with more clarification coming out about the seasons and stuff, I didn't see enough of time, I guess, or reason to dump a bunch of hours into leveling up an alternate character when I'm just gonna have to essentially remake that entire character when the season starts. Uh, I guess that's the way Diablo's always been. I've mentioned many times this is my first Diablo game, so it's weird to me to say the least. But I would say that overall my Diablo 4 experience was a net positive. I took a chance on a game that I normally wouldn't play, and I ended up really liking it, despite some of the gripes that I might have with the end game and seasonal content. And then I did have some issues with some of the leveling towards the end. It can feel a little tedious, but allowing you to have that power fantasy and kind of creep up and make sure that your character and your build gets stronger and stronger with each piece of gear or each level is something that might keep me coming back depending on how the seasonal model is handled. Uh, but if you did enjoy this review, make sure you drop a like, subscribe for more essay videos, and this has been my review of Diablo 4.